Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I hope you find the information session relevant. So, what we're going to do today is basically go through and walk you through some of the course. Please do send any questions that you may have, and we'll be able to answer them within the information session today. And the idea of today is really present much more information about the course, some of the concerns you may have, and really introduce you to the many themes and the topics we will be covering. So let's get into it. So the course is basically Interactive Media Practice, MA. It's a very interesting course where we kind of combine and look at technology in a creative way. We are at the University of Westminster. For those who are unfamiliar with the campus, we do have a very close proximity towards London, which is great. And also, we have undergone some significant development within our campus. So our campus is very polished. It's coming along very nicely in terms of our infrastructure and labs. So we have very nice and interesting technology and toys for all of the students to play with, which is great for new students. Moving on, so in terms of our position, we as a university, we were actually rated as one of the top world ranking universities, the top 100 most international universities of 2016 last year, which is a great milestone and achievement given the track record of the university's success in innovation. It was one of the first established polytechnics in UK, which is a significant number of years ago, and it's really got a history of long-term innovation from the Quintin Hogg Foundation and a number of things. So it really culminates that ethos within the spirit of the Interactive Media Practice course. The course itself is simultaneously broken down into key themes. It's broken down into areas of make, create, and innovate. So if we want to introduce you to the course, in terms of the course background, the course is very practice-based in terms of its industry focus. It's designed to reflect an industry trend. So we've really gone and done significant research and development within developing and planning this course. So one of the things, for example, is we've vetted industry. We have a lot of industry input, and we've really reversed engineered some of the skill sets and some of the problems back into the course and developed a very compelling course that students will find enjoyable and also rewarding. It combines creativity and technology. We do look at technology, we look at it from a creative perspective, in the sense that we culminate sciences and culminate arts and design and disciplines, and have a very practice-based approach and a very open source approach towards technology, similar to the items themed within Apple and Microsoft, who started in the 80s. Even prior to that, at that time, had a very open source and a very open mentality towards technology and towards technology development. Significant years have gone past where technology and technology giants have mainly become proprietary, and so we do really look at hardware and software. We open things that we do like to get involved to see how things work, and that partly is due towards the ethos and the spirit of the course. So we do look at development. We encourage students to experiment, examine, and also create things. And we have a very modern, fresh course designed for the digital media age. So a lot of the practitioners who teach on the course are either what I call ethical hackers or very professional in terms of their industry. They have a great track record of success. And the team which support and delivers the course is very professional, and we have some great academics who represent the course through significant research and practice-based research, which is great. The MA Interactive Media Practice also maps on to several career trajectories. So if you do have a career trajectory in mind, it's something that the MA will map onto, and we're quite prolific within the final major project. So we ensure that the major project does map towards one of your career trajectories that you may have. I think Arjun's got a question. Yeah, Arjun, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we're looking at how it's engaged with the industry. Can you talk us through how, kind of what areas within which industries that would be useful, these skills from the MA would be very useful for?
Okay, that's a brilliant question. I think, as the applicants may know who have gone through the university website, we've got endorsement by Adobe, which have really endorsed the course in the sense of the way that we use technology, and it's very rewarding and refreshing from that sense. We also have a number of other companies and engagement with industry that we actively go and seek and develop relationships. For example, we will be organizing hackathons with a series of partners and having that engagement within key several sectors. So one of those would be creative technologies. Another one would be VR using Google Card or using something with Oculus. So in terms of our engagement with industry is always an ongoing, perpetuating relationship. We find that industry are also seeking to recruit out of the course. So when I have engagement, they're always asking, have we got students within this skill set? So it could be virtual reality, it could be app development, it could be front-end web development, a number of things we get asked all the time. And it's just solidifying our relationship with that. And that's interwoven throughout the course. So for example, a lot of the students will be working on Library Sergeant. So they will be doing live work in conjunction with an NGO or a non-profit organization or even as technology startup. So we really are kind of have that incubation within industry. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
So I think that covers the course kind of background. So if I can move on, the state of the industry is very interesting because the digital media industry as a whole is very lucrative, as we all know. I would also say that it's recession-proof, and there's significant research and historic data that represents that in terms of the digital media and technologies industries are very recession-proof in the sense that they continue to grow and foster within an economic recession, which is great. And also, I'm a strong believer that the digital media industry is predominantly going through what we would call a digital gold rush, in the sense that if we look at where technology is moving towards from the areas of virtual reality and having possibilities of VR and augmented reality, from the incubation of mobile devices and the rapid increase of consuming information from areas of mobile devices and mobile platforms. Then we've got an interesting area of wearable technologies, which still within its infancy within the UK. And then we've got growing areas of the Internet of Things. For example, Arjun, as you may know, I've got the fridge that actually tells you what information I have. I've got, if I run out of eggs, my fridge will actually tell me. So this Internet of Things is actually going to, we will see an increase of this. And one of the key areas of this is they all require some digital media output, whether that's designing an interface, designing some compelling user experience. Most of these areas are covered within the course. And then we have areas of gaming. There's various different types of platforms for games. There's mobile, there's tablet-based, and then there is online-based gamings. So in terms of the state of the industry is obviously, as we've discovered and we know, is highly lucrative, and we hope to get our students engaged within these types of industries for a successful career. And our previous track record of students have gone on to very successful careers. So we do aim for a mid or higher tier career. I'm not happy for my students to go into junior roles. I do want them to go towards slightly more the higher developer roles, or going towards the much more lucrative end of the spectrum. So we're hoping to maintain that track record of success as well as the career trajectories on the course. So if you do come to the course, come onto the MA, it will be a lot of work, but hopefully it's rewarding financially as well as being rewarding through the knowledge and competencies that we will gain. We'll get into more about the masters, so let's get right into it, if that's okay with you, Arjun.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of more about and focusing in detail on the masters, it's obviously practical. It's very on-hands based. It's not theoretical based or a research-based masters. It's very practice-based in terms of we will be engaging and learning technology. We do start from the ground zero, so a lot of students have that fair aspect of being thrown into the deep end where technology is concerned, in contrast, in particular, where programming is concerned. So we do start from ground zero and build knowledge. Some students come onto the course with great knowledge, but equally, Arjun, we have great students and great support staff who really support the course from a teaching and learning perspective. And we've got great resources in terms of students have free access to premium version of lynda.com, and have access to the entire whole website, which is great. So we have a number of technology resources to support learning, and we also have a number of digital resources, compelling notes that we really support and nurture the student growth from that perspective. It's also enjoyable, diverse, and the whole idea is it will add and contribute towards an existing portfolio students or applicants may have, or develop and building a fresh portfolio. So it's very enjoyable and diverse, and I want to keep the focus on that. We do try to make the course very enjoyable and very rewarding. So the students, although the students will find challenges, but it's also enjoyable. When you're passionate about something, when you enjoy something, you tend to work a lot harder at that. So we get our students to learn lots of things about programming, and some of them say we hate programming, but by the end of the course they really enjoy it. So it's that approach that we have towards being flexible. I think you've got a question that
I was going to ask, how do people from a non-programming or just very basic knowledge programming standpoint, how do they find it when they actually kind of kick off on the course? Is it like just a wall of information for them at the start, or are they able to kind of develop quite nicely during the course?
I think, again, that's a brilliant question, and going from historic students and the development that we've done on the course, we incrementally drip feed the knowledge into the modules on a weekly basis, so they're not bombarded with lots of information. And we have a kind of what we call like a hack culture, where students actually learn, build things, get them functioning, and bolt things together from that perspective. There is a very strong foundation level of learning within the cognitive domain, so we do really support the knowledge and the learning, but we do it in an incremental basis, so it really scaffolds the student learning experience rather than just throwing them into the deep end and looking at algorithms. But the focus is on a Master's or Master of Arts, so it's an MA, it's not an MSc, so they will not be bombarded with lots of algorithms and computing. I don't know if I mentioned my background is science and computing, so I didn't know if I mentioned that earlier. I should have mentioned that, but yes, so we do actually scaffold the student knowledge and learning, and most of our course team have won very prestigious awards within the teaching and learning domain. So we have had a track record of success of winning many of the awards within learning and teaching and learning from student success. So we've always had that ethos on the course, and we find that students coming from creative disciplines actually able to work very proactively, because they are lateral thinkers, and they have lateral thinking, so they're able to solve problems and really focus on developing and solving problems from another perspective. So it either means you're a right brainer or a left brainer, and we're trying to make that hybrid developers, or some culmination of where those two areas meet, which is a very interesting area, and I think that's what the industry and the feedback from the industry has been. Is that okay?
Yeah, so does that mean you're not kind of penned into a particular type of programming language or particular type of development kind of type?
Yep, so we do cover a number of programming languages, and we do cover a number of software, and there is enough flexibility within the briefs to work on live projects. So although we do specify core areas of programming, so for example, when we develop apps, we may look at Xcode, and students will be given lots of live examples, getting things working, lots of things on a weekly basis. They have access to great online resources which supports a course, as well as professional tutors that sit down and actually go through things to a high level of competency. From previous students who have come onto the course from creative disciplines have all been able to produce compelling apps. Some of them, Arjun, have even got them on Kickstarter campaigns. I mean, we're talking to a higher level of competencies, not low-level app development. The development that students have done from a creative perspective are able to push the apps on the App Store and get them downloaded. So it's going from concept to completion, and everything in between. And that does culminate to some design aspects, some creative thinking, some challenges, some technical thinking. So it does go through the whole diverse area of concept to completion. Is that okay?
Yeah,
I've got a lot. Let me move on because I've got a lot of slides to cover. So we've got study modes. We've got two study modes. So the course runs for 1 year full-time mode, and the course is delivered on a Wednesday and Thursday. And it's designed around industry professionals who still may want to work a few days to substitute their income. So they may want to work within a career or within the sector. And then they come on to do a course like this for upskilling, so to really bring up their skills. And the course is delivered on the Wednesday and Thursday in the full-time mode. The course then runs on a part-time mode for 2 years. So ideally, the student will come on 1 year on the Wednesday and do the following year on the Thursday. Wednesday and Thursday are predominantly full-day teaching and learning within several workshops. So we do several workshops, and we do practice-based sessions, and we do operate within a lab environment, there's a big but, our labs are equipped with much modern, fresh ways of doing things. We have open source and hack spaces, which I'll cover in the later on in the slides, but it's not just lab-based. Students will be working in compelling environments, looking at experimental ways of working as well. So it's not just sitting in front of a computer. There will be other areas where students can actually develop and create things. For example, working with Raspberry Pi, or working with things that they may want to get interested in, which I'll cover in later on in the slides. Again, it's very on hands. It's practice-based, practical sessions, and the focus is always towards industry. And some students for this year actually have highlighted areas that they want to do their PhDs, doctorates, which is great. So there is that research, there is that theory embedded, but the theory is interwoven within the practice stages. For example, a good example is in the UX module, we do look at a lot of theory around HCI, and we do look around things of the UX process, and it's interwoven through a practice-based. So the theory and the practice is interwoven, and that's a golden thread which runs throughout the whole MA. In terms of the modules, we have a number of modules. All modules are compulsory, and I'll go through these within significant detail after this slide, but I'll quickly introduce today's attendees to these modules. So the first one is Applied Innovation and Interactive Design, which is the student's ability to really come up with an innovative idea. And the second module is Mobile Apps and Wearable Devices, where the students have to develop a mobile app or something for a wearable device. It's totally up to them. And then we've got Entrepreneurship and Project Management for Creative Industries, which is centered around monetizing students' skill sets and developing an SME, small to medium enterprise, on the course. And then we have another really interesting module, social media and e-marketing. So we do look at SEO, social media, e-marketing. We show the students a number of dark art on enhancing social media, running a campaign from concept to completion, email marketing. Students really engage with this module. It's a core skill that most students will require going into the workplace at some level. And then we've got probably one of my favorite modules, which is Hack Lab and Creative Technologies, which is what we call our digital sandbox, where students actually get their hands on technology and just simply play with this through various different outputs. And again, I'll cover all of these modules in my later on in the slides more specifically. I'm just going to gloss over them right now. And then we've got the final major project, which is the students' ability to specialize within one specific chosen aspect of their project. So let's have a look at all of these modules in detail. All of the modules are core. Students must take all of the modules in order to pass the MA. So let's have a look at these in closer detail. We'll start with the first one, Applied Innovation and Interactive Design. So this exciting module is centered around students to come up with an innovative idea. So innovation is core within the course itself. It's a golden thread which runs through the course. So the ability for students to innovate. So within this module, students have to basically develop and come up with an innovative idea for an app. It could be for a mobile application or a web-based app. And for this specific module, our students would have to produce what we call a proof of concept. So it's at the early stages of the prototyping stages. So it's very linked towards the methodologies that they would do in industry. So the workflow of the masters is in line with the workflow and the development workflow in industry within the interactive media disciplines. So for this module, students will have to develop a proof of concept. So they would have to do a lot of market research to incubate the idea, do some feasibility testing, feasibility understanding, do the market research, come up with a compelling idea, and then roadmap and test that before they go towards the build stages. We know that the app market is very lucrative. There are various ways of monetization of an app through ads or through various other sponsorships. However, when we actually develop an app can be very expensive to actually develop because we would need to pay for developers and so forth. So this module really looks at the beginning and the early stages of the development cycle. So for this, students will have to come up with an idea. It could be any idea that they have or may have within the back of their mind. And we will teach you the processes and the protocols used to develop this. So for example, they'll have to do the market research. They'll then have to produce a proof of concept, or what we refer to as an app simulation. So which has an animation, the look and feel of how the app, web app or mobile app would interact, the look and feel, the colors, the type of colors, and our approach will be user-centered design. So the UCD and all the user, where we place the user at the heart of what we're developing. And again, our students have produced, there's a little quote there, students have produced some amazing work on this module, which solves real world problems. So I'll give you an example, Arjun, is that we've got previous years ago, we had a great student who in this module did a relationship with the hospital next door to us. We've got a hospital at Northwick Park Hospital, and he was trying to come up with a problem and solve this problem of patients suffering from a condition called hypertension, which is suffering from heart condition. So that patients found it difficult to relax, and his app was predominantly based around helping patients with a scientific condition called hypertension in order to help them to relax. So there's a lovely app, and he basically did a lot of research around things that were scientifically proven to help us relax. So things like wave sounds or very soothing sounds, and the patient could actually cycle through this app, compile their own playlists, and then set the alarms for open to help them awake or sleep at night. And then also have some really nice visualizations that will help. And that was developed in conjunction with the hospital itself, and they really liked the idea, and the patients loved it as well. So I think it's that kind of tenacity that our students come on board. And these ideas are totally down to the students. So it's really giving the power back to the students. And we've had fashion apps, we've had a variety of different apps, from farming apps, from agricultural apps to problem-based apps, but the idea and is totally up to the students. But we are looking for the students' ability to really innovate and at the early stages of the app development. And there's low level of programming for this module, but the focus is on developing your proof of concept and doing a number of research around the 360-degree approach towards the app development. I'm starting to speak very fast because I've got a lot to cover, so I'm just worried about time. So moving on to the next module, which swiftly brings us on towards mobile apps and wearables. So with this module, students actually have to develop a app, and that's within the iOS, or it could be Android. platform, or it could be a wearable platform as well. So we do predominantly work with iOS. However, we're quite open to students who are wanting to work with Android. That's absolutely fine. And for this part of the module, the course, students from Applied Innovation normally carry their idea over. So that's very interesting. So that replicates the industry model. So where we take a proof of concept and actually go towards a build stage, and we start to build the app or modify and have the evolution, so students actually evolve their idea and for a much more practice-based outcome. And within this module, students are actually focusing on developing a powerful app through practice-based skills. Some students choose to produce for a wearable device or choose actually both. And we do look at things to do with Xcode. We do touch on programming, and we do assist the students towards scaffolding their knowledge towards this. And again, most students are able to produce very powerful media-rich applications, mobile-based apps for this module. All students from historic reference have been able to produce apps. So even the creatives who come on, they're able to produce apps, which are absolutely great. And it's great to see the fruition of those early ideas that students come on board, and then actually bringing the app to life is a great testament. And the students can actually demonstrate that from their portfolios as well. So the proof of concept towards the development. I think you've got a question.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, are the two modules, so the one that you covered previously, which kind of goes around the proof of concept, and then this is obviously the actual production of an app. Are they happening concurrently, or do they happen like one after the other?
They actually happen concurrently, but there is a significant leeway between the two. So one, Applied Innovation happens slightly earlier, before the mobile apps, but the two are intertwined in terms of working towards the proof of concept and also the development methodology as well, and then going through what we call having an agile approach, responding to the user changes. So if the students may identify the target user group, or something may change within the evolution of the idea, so they would have to go back, and we refer to this in industry terms as Scrum or Agile, or having some or RAD, rapid application development, where the students actually come back and having that agile approach. So it has to be delivered in this way in terms of having that simultaneous interaction between the two. So there is a degree of reiteration, and we find this module is more towards a proof of concept, but developing and incubating of the idea in itself and road testing it, and then the deliverables, the actual submission for this happens a lot later. So students do have that gap in the window of the development cycle. And I think it's very reflective of an industry model. Students, again, are able to develop some powerful apps and wearable devices. And there's one thing that I want to mention about this, Arjun, is that in industry, there is a significant development towards what we call like the evolutionary stage of working with technology. So it's actually very difficult to come up with a unique idea that no one's ever thought of. And that doesn't really rely on hardware or infrastructure. You may be able to come up with an idea, a very unique idea, but it may then rely on significant sources of funding, or some significant hardware or new hardware or new software to be developed. So the consensus within the app world and the development stages is looking at the evolutionary stage of the app ecosystem. I'll give you an example. There are abundance of apps on the App Store. However, some of them are very poor in terms of they may have a very poor user interface, or they become the army Swiss knife of doing a lot of things particularly badly, but they only do one thing particularly well. So the evolutionary stage within the app ecosystem now is to simplify the app and have a very, very user-informed app which has a great user experience, can be used more frequently, but actually delivers on that side.
And fits within a very strong niche.
Yes, exactly, and it sits in a very strong niche. And we've found that if you look at the way the industry is going, and the trajectory is in line with this kind of movement. When we do embody that spirit within the development stages and the cycles, and students again find it very enjoyable. They're very susceptible. I mean, even the creative students coming on from an arts background, for example, or a graphic design background, find that these modules are very, very compelling and very rewarding, because they already bring the very interesting design skills, and they are able to enable that through an interactive context, which is really interesting. So that kind of leads me on to another module, which is entrepreneurship for creative industries. This module should be actually entrepreneurship and project management for creative industries. And this module is very interesting. So a bit of history around this module is that we find every year that students come onto the course with great skills. They have great skills. They already have skills in technology sector or programming sector or design skills or even art-based skills or fine art or e-marketing or from industry. But some students may lack the entrepreneurship or the monetization of their existing skill sets. So for example, this year we had some great students, 2 students from a music background. And they already have a very good portfolio of doing sound design for games or doing some great skill sets. But how do we then monetize those skill sets? And again, that's for the programmers and the designers and the creatives alike. This module really explores the monetization of the existing skill sets that students may have. So for example, some students actually produce their own portfolios and work as freelancers and have a robust model in place of how to charge clients and those types of things. What this module actually focuses on is developing your own SME, small to medium enterprise. So by graduation, I would want all my students to be in a position where they have their own small to medium enterprise set up online. We use WordPress for this, and this module really shows and proves as a creative business incubator program. So it's getting students together, and some students actually formulate teams and have an SME between them, which is really interesting. So for example, some students sit together with the programmers, the designers sit with the programmers, and vice versa, and you combine these very talented pool of individuals together from a variety of different diversity and working in an interdisciplinary way. That is a startup. That is an SME, and we incubate this within the course. And students have come up with very good, strong businesses. Again, we had a Kickstarter business for this module as well. And the students will learn a number of things on this module, in the sense that we do encompass the Prince 2, which is projects in controlled environments. I myself am a Prince 2 practitioner at practitioner level, and for those of you who are not familiar with Prince, it's very interesting. It's the industry de facto. It's equivalent of being Microsoft certified or Cisco certified or Apple accredited. It's a project management protocol used within industry. And we do other things in terms of the teaching and learning around this module is centered around the Scrum methodologies for commercially viable outcomes. So we do look at methodologies, we do look at Scrum, we do look at sprints, we do look at areas of RAD, rapid application development, and then we look at how you take your business and go from concept to completion for a commercially viable output. So we do look at things like copyright. Who owns the rights to your app? Who owns the rights to your website? What are the differences between that? Where are the grey areas? We look at copyright law. We look at the nuts and bolts of starting a business and taking that towards fruition. And we find that students within the creative sector really find it difficult to actually charge. Or if I told you to develop an interactive 360 video for the university for the course, how would you work that? Where is the calculation? Where is the metrics? How would you calculate that out? Is your quote competitive in line with a London-based quote? Do you have great SEO for your SME? Can I find that online? And one of the great things of having an online SME, small to medium enterprise, is we can go global, or we can have a localized business. So we can really use SEO to leverage our positioning. So for example, some of our international students go back and set up their business in their neighboring countries and have a very localized approach. But this module is really centered around developing an SME, and hopefully students are able to draw an element of income from this. And students again find it's very enjoyable. They team up with a variety of students on the program, and are able to have their own small to medium enterprise, which is really great. leads me on to our swiftly onto another module, which is social media and e-marketing. So again, a lot of thought has gone into this course, into this module, in the sense that we're looking at developing campaigns for social media and e-marketing. The module is based around managing a digital marketing campaign using social media. From concept to completion. We do really look at things like the frequency of social media. We look at the rank edge algorithm on Facebook. We look at the newsfeed on Facebook. How does that work? We look at LinkedIn. We look at things around Instagram. We look at a variety of different social media platforms, as well as e-marketing in a wider context. Things like PP SEO, as well as PPC, pay-per-click, Google AdWords are considered within this module. And students have to get under the hood of looking at metrics. We look at funnels. It's very compelling and it's very interesting. And for this, students will be working within NGOs and as live briefs. So we will be supporting industry who have problems with marketing and solving those problems. And again, it's very team-based. So we split the students within teams. They come up with a very snazzy name for their social media and e-marketing. They become marketers for a 12-week program. And then they have to actually work in line with the industry live brief, with the NGO, with a non-profit organization, and moving and developing one of their social media campaigns through a content-driven approach. So they actually have to produce content as well. I'll move on. And then we've got one of my most favorite, very close to my heart, Hack Lab and Creative Technologies module, which is really a what we call a digital sandbox. So having one of the things in terms of the research and development of this MA is significant. And one of the things that we've identified is, if you have a very prescribed and tight course, where is the flexibility? Where is the room to actually play and develop? How does that actually happen? And I think that's really important for an MA in the digital media industry for the 21st century. I think it's going forward being a very compelling new age course. We want to be at the forefront of those industries. And this is really centered around the MIT labs, is what it basically is we look at and creative ways of exploring technology, and we kind of have a very Hack Lab incubator program where we have a new space for this, which is a Hack Lab space. We have a giant interactive 3D wall, which is really great, so students can actually write on an interactive, it's a giant iPad, and students actually can use this, so it's basically for the student base. We've got great software and development, we've got Oculus, we've got virtual reality, we've got AR facilities, which is actually absolutely great. And the idea around this is that students have to come up with experimental idea. It could be anything that they are interested in. It could be a 360 video. It could be an AR project. It could be a VR project. It could be an animation. It could be something around cyber security. It could be anything in terms of formulating that hack. And when I mean hack, I'm talking from a making and creating, not hacking Russian bots or doing something around hacking. Arjun's laughing here. Yeah. But it's looking at the hacking culture of bolting and making things. So I'll give you an example. When we are faced with the problems around, like, say, for example, like we want to check the oil of a car or do something to fix a car, most of us would go to YouTube, check the video and have that bite-sized information, look at that and then solve the problem, copy the video of what that actually says. So it's that kind of building your knowledge and bolting things together from a making and creating perspective. And again, students find it's very enjoyable. It's actually taught by a hacker, I would say an ethical hacker from industry, right, and professionals from industry that come on board. And students actually get to play with technology, a very open source culture. Some students develop things with Raspberry Pi, with sensors. Some students do installation work, do some 3D work, and it's totally up to you. And we support your needs with technology and give you environment which we could stimulate those learning intelligences. So we really support the learning throughout that period. Is that okay? Yeah. I think one of the two final modules, which I'll quickly go through, UX design and development, is developing around the user experience and developing compelling UX experiences, and we consider a HCI approach. We look at Scrum methodologies, we look at Agile, we look at wireframes. A lot of our students actually go through into the UX industry, which is great, and we have great public speakers who come back into the course and speak about UX and have a lot of industry engagement within that. With this module, we look at students actually have to develop UX for a variety of different creative outputs. So UX is not only prescribed to websites or towards things like mobile apps. A user experience is ingrained in everything that we do since the early 70s, from areas of kiosks or installations or museums, all require great, compelling user experience. So we do look at the research, we do look at Agile, we do have a UCD approach, and students have to actually develop the industry workflows, and we use Adobe XD for this, which is a great new software and which is still in beta stages by Adobe at the moment, but it's a great piece of software that we actually use for this as a range of practical coursework. The final major project, before I run out of time, the final major project is basically an area of students' specialization. So students would pick a significant area of their interest and specialize and produce a number of creative work for this output. So for example, it could be around games, so students may produce a range of games. It could be around AR and developing a advertising campaign. And one of the requirements within this is that the students engage with an industry. So they would have to work in conjunction with an industry project. And that's up to the students to choose a relevant partner of their field. Most applicants use their existing companies that they work for. If not, I do find and help assist in that process, or we do partner up students with companies that they want to work with. And we've got this area of fly high, so we want the students to actually developing large scale projects, and this is based around negotiated contracts. So students will sit with myself, we would work out the parameters of their work which they want to produce, and we have a learner agreed contract that they would have to produce a topic. Within this topic, they'll have to produce this amount of work, and it's signed off. And this is taught within several stages of the course, but it's very independent student learning. Students have to actually write a thesis that supports this major project. And the project can be a series of trajectories. So it could be a VR advertising campaign, which a lot of students work and develop in through Unity Media, for example. The other students, it could be an installation piece, or it could be around an interactive film or 360 video, or something around drone development. A lot of my students are obsessed with drones. They're doing a number of things around drones and flying them around the campus, which is great to see. So the students actually specialize and choose that. And
this is a very individual project.
Yes.
So I've got a question about someone asking about that. It can't be collaborative within the cohort.
That's a brilliant question. I think if students are happy to partner with skill sets, because a lot of students come on board with a variety of skill sets, and we really encompass that diversity on the MA. And students can actually partner with some of the students and have a joint project. We would have to sit down and agree the learning outcomes and have the outputs. So for every one project, there has to be a significant outputs, because this is a major project, so it's a large scale and a body of work. But the students have absolute freedom of the chosen topic that they would choose, and it's an area of specialization. One key thing that we do with the major project is map that towards a career trajectory. So if the students are wanting to go into UX or going to virtual reality advertising, which many of my students do, from my creative students tend to go in VR advertising or AR, there's a very hunger and demand from industry to support this new and emerging discipline, especially for advertising and branding. So one of my students, just to give you an example, Arjun, went towards developing a campaign for Calvin Klein using virtual reality. Within 6 months, they made him the project manager, which is great. And he's not a programmer. So it's his ability to really contextualize the ideas and know enough with the technology using things like Unity, which is a great software which we embody on the course. So there is those trajectories towards the course. But the major project is linked towards a career trajectory. If students want to do a PhD afterwards, great, then we would do a research-based project. But there needs to be an output, significant outputs to support that. Is that okay?
Yeah, right.
And in terms of careers, I think I've touched upon this. There's a number of careers that an employment students can go into. The previous alumni have gone into very successful careers. Some of them have become app developers. UX is a very good career. Front-end development, SEO, VR installation, online branding, information design, things like new media production, games designers. There's a number of creative sectors, but there's flexibility within the program for students to specialize their career outputs, and then we tailor towards that. And we have a PDP, which we do on week 1 when students come onto the course. So we have a personal development program, which is a PDP, which we work towards with the students. So within that, we ask the students what careers do they hope or would they wish to go into. Some students don't have a firm understanding. They get to that to semester 2, which is absolutely fine. But we do tailor the program. There's enough flexibility we've left in the program to support the students' career trajectories. And then we do that within the first week, because as soon as we have that information and data, we can then bring in the relevant industry bodies. So we'll have people from Adobe who come in to do relevant talks. We do hackathons around the course. We do a number of things that is seen in Silicon Valley. We meet up with the group occasionally. We go for drinks. So there's a number of community building that we do that's seen in the creative tech startup culture that we have, and that's where kind of innovation happens. So I think we're very keen to embody that same spirit for every year. So we do things around group working. We do assemble as a group, which is really nice. We do go towards museums visits, and we go to VR World conferences together, and we really have that engagement within an industry focused. And we have a number of new labs and new facilities. We have great toys for the students to engage with, and I think that's really important to support a course like this. So I think that's kind of concludes my presentation, and I think I'll hand it over back to Arjun.
Okay, we're back. So we have got a few questions in. That's really great for everyone who has sent in questions. So the first thing I am going to ask is, when developing apps in the program, what development studio or software will you be using as part of it, and is Adobe kind of the core part of it as well?
Okay, it's a great question. So one of the things that we do is we are predominantly Apple-based campus, because we have lots of Apple Mac machines, spec'd quite highly. So encompassing that spirit, we do look at Xcode. So the students will be developing Xcode as a platform. We also use Unity Media to develop powerful and engaging apps as well. So within that, students can specify for Android. So some students do choose the Android route, which is absolutely fine. And we do have a number of devices that students can use and test, or students can bring in their own mobile devices and plug them in. We can run simulations to test on multiple environments, but we do use Xcode and Unity. Yep.
Okay. The next question is, as someone who, because you've spoken a lot about media students and how they're fared on the course, will this suit someone who is purely from a computer science background?
Absolutely, yes. De facto answer. I have my own background is from computing, and students from computing excel drastically. They do very, very well, but they also have a robust understanding of the processes involved within developing. So they may lack certain design skills, or they may lack the methodologies. A tendency in computing is we normally just go in and start coding and build stuff because we know the programming languages. Right. So it's having that reflective approach and knowing enough about the processes and driving things from concept to completion, things around like market research and things. And
would that also include things like design principles?
Absolutely,
as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone coming from computing background is very strong equally. Students coming from design disciplines have equally strong merits as well. So I think it's looking at those two disciplines and meeting where those two are combined. So yes, computing are more than welcome to come on board. Even we have students from software engineering backgrounds to hardcore discipline in terms of hard engineering, from computer programming to computer sciences. A lot of the things that we do is touched upon science. So we have a science-led approach, and which is required within the fields of UX and working in an interdisciplinary way. But what we do is encompass and have those environments. So, for example, having those hack lab environments where students can actually engage with each other in compelling work and working and building their devices, and things like that. For example, a student from computing at the moment is working on projects with Raspberry Pi and doing a number of things around 3D printing, which is absolutely great. So yes, you're more than welcome on the course.
Actually, kind of related to that as well, we have someone who's actually currently at the university doing the UG multimedia computing degree.
Yep.
So would there be a lot of crossover with that, or and would it be a suitable kind of way into doing the MA?
That is great to see. I mean, the course is designed around the multimedia. I mean, we don't use industry. We don't no longer use the term in industry, multimedia. But my previous background is 2 degrees in multimedia. So, and they were done significant years ago. But in terms of a trajectory and a pathway, that's really strong in terms of we do cover some aspects of multimedia, but a much higher level and a much competency level. There may be minor overlap, but we do take it to a much master's level towards an industry trajectory. So I would want the students to go into the higher tier jobs. It's not a UG course. It's very pitched towards at a higher end of the spectrum. For example, we've had students 2 years ago from Apple who did the course. We've had students who've gone into Oculus to work. So it's kind of aimed towards that level, and students find it very enjoyable. But there is a mix and a culmination of students who come onto the course from multimedia to computing to creative arts, from CMP, contemporary media practice, may come onto or digital media communication, DMC may come onto the course. But it's encompassing that way of working with technology.
Yeah. Okay, great. A question here about do you have partnerships with companies that could offer internships and potential future careers as well?
Okay, it's a great question. Yes, yes. In a nutshell, yes. I'm hounded with companies asking us for a number of things. We have a great relationship from personal friends towards professional industry collaborators that support the course. A lot of the courses, modules and the outputs are industry focused. So the students do work with industry live projects on the MA. So that means by the time they graduate, they have worked on live industry projects, and they would want to show that in their portfolio. So in a way, it doubles up as having the students having relevant experience and expertise within that. We also have a number of industry practitioners who come in and do several talks to the students. We have a number of individuals, from example, cancer research, from UX developers, UX designers come in, talk about the process. And we are really a centralization and a hub for the industry engagement. We're approached from bizarre companies, for example, things like Mercedes, who want to launch a new car but want to create an experimental installation piece that embodies the spirit of the new Mercedes, or embodies the spirit of the new Audi R8. So the students will kind of work within technology and installation or a VR piece, or work within a team to support those ideas, because those are new ways of working. Those are new kind of the methods of those ways of working have not really been developed yet. So we do get strange projects that come in, and we do have an active engagement with industry. We're very industry focused. Yes.
Would this also suit those who are from a marketing and advertising background, so students?
Absolutely. Again, very very strong field, because there's a lot of overlap and interdisciplinary ways of working. So students come on board from a marketing perspective, specialize in AR or or VR. So looking at print-based magazines, you can hover over your device and have an augmented reality experience. And we actually show you how to develop that on the Hack Lab module. And we look at Pokemon Go as an example, and students actually play that and have lots of fun within the Hack Lab module. But then we look at the social media module. We look at social media algorithmically. We do look at how Facebook works. What is the algorithm that governs the newsfeed? What is the data? What is the analytics? SEO, Google AdWords. We really get under the hood of looking at social media and e-marketing from that perspective. And again, students have to work with a live industry partner with that, which we give you 3 to 4 industry partners. Students pick one, which is a live brief as an NGO, a non-profit organisation that students have to develop for. Yes?
Yeah. A question about the application. Would they be required to have a portfolio of work?
Yes, absolutely. Students who are wanting to apply, as you may know, we've received a high volume of applications at this current stage, which is absolutely great. We're in the process of vetting applications as they come in. What we do look for is portfolio of demonstration of portfolio, some level of industry engagement. If students are not from industry, we would look for a very strong UG degree, and looking at their portfolio, that existing work that their project base, that they've done. But I would welcome most students that from today's discussion to welcome them to apply. Be specific in their write-up of their proposal, why they would want to come onto the course. For me, I'm more about taking on the passionate students. The size and the cohort in terms is very small, so we are in a position of vetting relevant applications. But what we would really look for is passion and innovation. So students coming onto the course with that degree of passion, working with technology in a creative output, and they could specialize in an area of e-marketing or social media or branding or VR, a number of outputs that they specialize in. But we would give them the tools and the knowledge to equip them with that experience and expertise. But we do look for, I do read the personal statements on the applications, and that kind of shapes our decision to a certain extent. Then we do look for industry engagement. Previous cohort this year mainly are from industry. We have a few from UG, which are great, and the students are doing really well. They are exceeding our expectations, which is always the case. We have 2 students who are doing a lot of work around drones and drone development, which is great, and bolting things towards Raspberry Pi and working with sensors, which is absolutely fantastic. But I would welcome the early applications, because there is a cutoff point for receiving applications. So I do welcome students to apply and hopefully to come onto the course. Yes.
And this is the final question, and I'll field this one. Someone's just asking about working during the course while being a non-EU overseas student. So this would all depend on your visa. Generally, it's 20 hours a week you're allowed, but that does depend on the visa. So I don't want to guarantee anything, and it also always depends on getting the visa and what kind of visa it is.
Okay, yeah, I think that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for everyone who signed up for the webinar. We hope you enjoy the session, and I hope it's an informative session for you guys. And it would be great to see some of you on the course. And I'd like to thank Arjun for setting up the webinar in this professional room that we're in today. And it's been a great session. Thank you all.
Cheers. Thank you very much. And we hope to hear from you soon.